Hi everyone, welcome to Last Book Alive. Today I am joined with my friend Pheroze Vincent, who I'm going to introduce shortly. Hi Pheroze, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for being here. It's a little weird because I don't know if I'm looking straight at you guys or not. Right now I'm looking at the camera, so I hope that it's okay. But anyway, so today we're discussing. Yeah, you can't hear me at all.
Uh, yeah, it's hanging a little bit. It's hanging a bit. I don't know why.
We just have to kind
It's
of,
so sad.
yeah,
Why was it?
yeah, we'll just have to do it that way. Or kya kare.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll do our best. So basically, today we're discussing this book. It's called "There's Gunpowder in the Air." There we go. Firoz has it. Okay, and it's written by Manoranjan Byapari, and it has been translated by Arunava Sinha. So before I talk about this book, I just wanted, Firoz, can you introduce yourself?
Hi. So yeah, I live in Delhi. I'm best friend from the journalism school. I work as a reporter in New Delhi, and I read this book about 6 months back. I think why I I like the book so much, besides the story itself, because I was born in Bengal, in Calcutta, actually very close to this jail. The hospital I was born in was a walking distance from this jail,
From Ali.
where this whole story is set. So the way he describes characters, these are characters I could relate to in Calcutta or Jharkhand, where I lived for a long time in life. So yeah, I that's how I connect to the book. I'm a journalist in Delhi with a Bengal-based newspaper, Telegraph. I cover politics. Uh, I'm from Hosur in Tamil Nadu, where I am right now on holiday and having a rather nice time, great food and stuff. And yeah, I try to read as much as I can, though I would say I unfortunately haven't been reading as much fiction as I would like to. But here I am, and
Thank-
happy to talk about this book. So
Okay. So thank you so much. I have so many questions about your experiences in Bengal and Jharkhand, but we'll get to that later. So I just wanted to tell people a little bit about this book. So there's gunpowder in the air. I just wanted to read the summary, which is actually just on the book's cover, and then I want to tell you about the author. Um, so this is how it starts. The summary. It's the 70s. The Naxalbari movement is gathering strength in Bengal. Young men and women have left their homes, picked up arms to free land from the clutches of feudal landlords and the state, and return them to oppressed, landless farmers. They are being arrested en masse and thrown into high security jails. In one such prison, five Naxals are meticulously planning a jailbreak. They must free themselves if the revolution is to continue. But petty thief Bhagavan, much too happy to serve frequent terms for free food and shelter, has been planted by jailer Bereshwar Mukherjee among them as a mole. Only Bhagavan seems to be warming up to them. Um, so yeah, this book actually this it was published by Eka, and it was published in Bengali as Batashe Baruder Gondo. Pronunciation sahi hai mera? In 2013. How do you say it? Tell me. हाँ?
good Bengali diction, yes.
तो आप तो बताओ कैसे बोलेंगे बताशे बताशे बोरुदोर.
Exactly like how you said it.
So this was published in English in 2018 by Eka. Yeah, and Okay, so this is the summary of the book, and now I just want to talk. I just want to tell people a little bit about the author. So this is Manoranjan Byapari. He is a Dalit writer. He was born in Barisal, Bangladesh, and he moved to West Bengal when he was just 3 years old. And he left home at age 14. So he lived in a refugee. He actually moved a lot from one refugee camp to another. Uh, and so he was sent to Alipur jail, where Feroze, you just mentioned that you lived close to the jail. I want to know more about that. So he was sent there, and he was actually sent, which is in Kolkata, and he was sent there. I think it was just for like a petty crime or something. But at that point, he was influenced by the Naxals. Can you hear me? Yeah.
I can. It's a bit soft, but I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so then yeah, he was associated with the Naxals, but they didn't know about it. Otherwise, he would have, I think, been given even more like severe punishment. So actually, he was charged with attempted murder and rioting. Okay. So and he wanted to become. So this actually, what I'm getting, I'm gonna link these sources, but this is from the Mint. It's an article from the Mint. He wanted to become a person who maintained daily prison records, because that would help him escape rigorous labor in the prison. When he went into prison, he didn't know how to read and write, and he wanted to kind of learn that. So he actually learned it in prison, and he used to sell his blood for 20 rupees to buy pen and paper so that he could. Did you know this?
Yeah, I mean, I read about it after reading this book. I read about him, and it's actually wonderful because selling blood to buy stuff in the 70s and 80s was shockingly fair, not very uncommon back then, not just in Calcutta but in other places of in India as well. The Economic Times, I think in the 80s, ran a story with the headline, there are movies in their blood. The story was about young men in Chennai selling blood on Friday to get to have to earn money to watch the first show of movies. So selling, I mean, there was I mean, we now know that there was such a blood shortage those days that people actually sold blood to buy simple things like pen and paper or mm, movie tickets.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I read that about him, I was quite surprised.
It's it's incredible. Yeah, thanks for that context. I mean, that historical context. I did not know that. So, but why was there such a blood shortage in India back in the 70s? Do you know? Like,
I think the technology and the kind of blood banks we have now to store blood were not there back then. Even in the capitals, the blood banks which you had, they did have blood banks, but they couldn't really store large amounts of blood like they do now. So it was more, when blood was needed, donors came to hospitals and gave blood. It was often hard to get blood, and hence there was a black market for blood. So there were there were young men who would hang out in front of hospitals to who who perhaps like Manoranjan Byapari didn't have much other means to earn money. So yeah, selling blood was one easy way to. I mean, you couldn't make too much, but at least earn money to buy pen and paper. So yeah.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your childhood in Kolkata, next to the jail? Some stories, please.
I was born in Kolkata, though I never lived there. My mom's family lived there, her parents lived there. So I would visit them every 6 months or so, school holidays and so on. We lived in South Bihar, that is now Jharkhand, and it's not very far from there. So it's about 6 7 hours by train. And so my grandmother worked in a hospital as a nurse, and this hospital was in it's Woodlands Hospital, that's still there.
Okay.
It's about a kilometer or two from the Alipur jail, or perhaps a little more. And we also lived not very far away from the hospital. So this part of Calcutta, I can't claim that I'm familiar with all of Calcutta, because when you're in school, you tend to hang around near your house. There's the massive National Library over there, also in the same neighborhood. I had family staying there, and I'd spend my holidays playing football on National Libraries in the lawns. So there was always this idea, this romantic notion of uh, the jail, Naxalites, Calcutta. I mean, there were always been rumors that there is a secret underground. There is actually there during in the late 60s, the a secret underground passage from St. Thomas School, also in in broadly the same part of the town, that connected St. Thomas School and National Library, which is close to the jail. Was the police blocked it, sealed it, because it was being used by Naxalites. So so I mean, as a young person, as a child, there's always this wonder about what happens behind the walls of a jail. This building that has these tall red walls, and the 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 paint they use would just, if you would wipe it with your hand would turn red. So it was, yeah, it's a wonderful place to be. I still consider Calcutta the most romantic, beautiful city.
So, how long did you live
There is, I mean,
for?
that place, though I have no more family living there, it's still home for me. I can't read or write Bangla or speak very fluent Bengali, but I do watch movies and stuff once in a while. So, and I have friends there. So and I'm working for a newspaper that is based there. So I keep my links with the with Cal, like that. And yeah, so yeah, that's about my childhood over there. So
तो कितने साल बिताए कोलकाता में?
I like I said, I didn't really I have not lived in Calcutta. I was born there because my mom's
Yeah,
family lived there.
but you heard
And
stories.
so I would go, I mean, throughout my school vacations, say until class 12, Calcutta was the place I would go to for holidays. My grandmother shifted in with us in about 2005 6, so by which time I had completed my degree. Yeah, the house in Calcutta was there until then. So yes, so for the first 2 decades of my life, I have regularly visited the place.
Okay. So, do you want to okay, so let me just get oh yeah, okay. So let me talk a little bit about what he does when he's in jail. So there was another interview that was published with that was published with him. So he was in jail from 1975 to 1977. And he met people there. Somebody he met had been deeply moved by Charitrahan, by Sarat Chandra Chattopadhyay. Sarat Chandra Chattopadhyay. And he was feeling dismal in jail, and and someone told him that if a tree could draw nutrients from concrete walls, then surely he could get something out of the jail as well. This is what he told the interviewer. He met Naxals in jail, and that's where basically he learned to read and write. And so I guess like I think that's where his education or his interest in writing kind of flourished. Or like, yeah, he was just getting the tools in jail so that he could then, move out once he was out of jail to become a writer. So once he got out of jail, do you remember, do you know anything about his meeting with Mahasweta Devi, how that happened? I know about it, so should I talk about it? Yeah?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please do.
Okay.
Hmm.
So basically, so one day he's out. So he became a rickshaw puller when he got out of jail. Or one day he took a professor on his rickshaw and he asked her the meaning of the word Jiji Bisha. And she told him that, okay, I'm going to say it again. So he took a professor on his rickshaw. Can you hear me? He took a professor on his rickshaw and no sound? Do you want at all?
I can hear some voice come through. I mean, but there's a lot of disturbance. I wonder why.
Do you want to put?
I'm on a Wi-Fi here. That's high.
Yeah, so I can hear you.
High broadband.
I can hear you fine. Yeah. So let me just continue, and yeah, we'll just do our best in terms of the audio, like, because when it's published, the audience will be able to hear it fine.
Oh, wonderful!
It's just nice. You who won't be able to hear anything. Not a problem. We'll just pretend that we understand each other. But now you can hear me because I see you laughing at my joke. So,
So I can even see you now. Your camera just started working right now.
Dude, I just turned the volume.
Yeah.
Like, just press the volume button. Maybe it's something like it goes off or something. I don't.
Yeah.
So just tell me next time you can't hear me, and I'll do the same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So he's out with his rickshaw, or a professor. He meets a professor. He takes her on, and then he asks her the meaning of the word Jiji Bisha. Okay, Jiji Bisha. And she tells him that it's the yearning for life. Okay, so they start talking, and she invites him to write for her Bengali journal called Bartika. And this professor was Mahasweta Devi, and famous Bengali writer. So he wrote for her his first short story. It was called Riksha Chalai, and it was published in 1981 for this journal. And that's how he basically started, basically took up writing, became a writer. Okay. It'll keep happening, Pheroze. What do you want me to say? It's technology. And,
you can keep speaking. I mean, this thing, if it's if it's a general problem, we can't help it. So you keep talking, and I'll
yeah.
I can at least hear your voice now. Okay. If I lose your voice, I'll let you know.
Okay. So basically, then you know that he ran for election in 2021, and he's now an MLA. Yeah. He's the MLA of what? Balgarh. He's the MLA of Balgarh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know? Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, it's wonderful that his life has actually come a whole circle. 1975. emergency is in force.
Yeah.
He is taken into custody just before, about 6 months before emergency is declared by a, a, I mean, he is now a member of Trinamool, this thing, and the same guys who are in power back then are their successors are in power right now, right? So he has actually come a whole circle, uh,
You mean
where after
you mean like people who arrested him? Can you hear me? The people who arrested him are the now the people that he's working with?
no, I'm saying the ruling party back then
Yeah.
is the Trinamool is a successor. The Trinamool split from the Congress Congress party, which was ruling back then. And so here is a person, a writer, Manoranjan Byapari, whom from the time he was born in the 50s, living in a refugee camp, uh, from one refugee camp to the next, Bengal to Chhattisgarh, back to Bengal, rickshaw puller up, someone who has always been outside the realm of power, outside the realm of access, or the but through his work, he has finally come to a stage where, after 7 decades, he's in the ruling party. I mean, how rarely does that happen? Um, when you read the book, it's all about people in jail who are either completely disenchanted
Yeah.
with the ruling establishment. It's about jail wardens and jail officers who are pretty much doing the job because they have to do it.
Yeah.
Um, what's strikingly remarkable in this tale, and I haven't read his other books, but what rings through in this rings true in this story is the general enchantment everyone from the prisoners, the jailers, even the cops have with the ruling establishment. And today, the guy who witnessed that all, who was at the lowest rung of the society back then, a person who could just be picked up by the cops on flimsy charges, which in the end could not be proved, who had no means of, let alone getting out of jail. He only learned to read and write very late in life. I mean, reading and writing is your first sort of chance to have any access to power, or to and that person is now in the ruling party. So I find his journey
Yeah.
particularly sort of remarkable. I mean,
Yeah.
on one hand, it can be held up as a success of the our Indian political system.
Yeah.
Those who, I mean, but I guess there will always be a large number of people who will look at him as another writer who made a compromise with his beliefs to join a ruling party. I would put myself in the first category of. I will take the sort of risk of putting myself in the first category, where I think Manoranjan Byapari's life is reason why one could give as to why should we continue to put our effort, hopes into democracy. The parliamentary democracy hasn't completely worked out in the way we would have liked it to, or the way people thought it would in say 47. But it is this democratic system where a refugee rickshaw puller who couldn't read, who was in jail on false charges half a century back, is now in a legislature. So yeah, I find that quite remarkable. So when you read the book written on of his life back then, half a century later, there are similarities between then and now, but at the same time there are also so many things that are in a different now, uh, which if I would give this book to a person born after 2000, she or he may not relate to it the way I do, because a lot of those expressions, the economic system, the the way people made a living are no longer true after say 2000 or 2010.
So I
And so yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing with
yeah
any book which is written long back, and it's wonderful to see how times have changed, but at the same time, so some things don't change. So
yeah. I mean, I think he's always talked about his like economic problems. Like even in this at the back, it says that he's working even now as until recently he was working as a cook with the Helen Keller Institute for the Deaf and Blind in West Bengal. He's also talked about not getting his wages either from this place or somewhere else. So I think even though he has become a very famous writer, can you hear me
I am not getting your voice too clearly.
now?
Yes, yes.
So, so basically, like, yeah, he's always had these financial problems. Like, even though he became a really famous writer, I think also like the translation really helped to bring him, I guess, in contact with the other parts of India. But yeah, like he always had financial problems. I don't think that I don't perceive him as some anything like a sellout. I, in fact, agree with the second narrative that you were saying, which is this amazing kind of start to finish, this amazing life, where a person who doesn't know how to read or write becomes an established and celebrated author. And what a voice he has, like it's a very unique voice, and it's telling stories. Yeah, it's telling stories that from a very personal kind of perspective, and only through experience would he have been able to write this. And I think that like one of the reasons why I like this book is because, see, it's one thing for somebody who's not experienced this to write it from a distance, but somebody who's experienced it personally, firsthand, to write it, like that's something special. And for them to have been motivated enough to acquire the tools to then express the reality that they were a part of, I think it's really it's that's what makes this I think that's what makes this book special, the fact that he acquired the tools that he needed to tell his story. So yeah. I don't know.
True.
Yeah. So there are some themes that I wanted to talk about, but tell me like what stood out for you. Like actually, before that, Firoz, can we talk a little bit about? Can you give us a little background on the Naxal movement in India?
I will. I will.
Yeah.
I would. I would, however, like to answer the first question first, very briefly.
Okay.
What stood out to me was the jail cat. Cat halum halo. Uh, he uses this literary device of giving the reader a feel of the jail through the jail cat halum. So since Halum is technically outside the system, he's not human. He's not a prisoner. He's not a jail warden.
Yeah.
Yet Halum sees everything in jail. I mean, the good, the bad. He sees the way the food is cooked. Um, I that was
Yeah.
that really struck me. I mean, that's a beautiful way to tell a story. I haven't ever met Manoranjan Byapari, but I think his voice, his individual voice, actually comes out through Halum and not Bhagwan or the other characters, the prisoners and so on. On the next slide movement, yeah, I mean, 1967, there is a peasant uprising in North Bengal. Naxal Badi is a small. It was a small village then. Is a small in the town now. That's where the uprising happened.
Next to
Tribal farmers and police personnel were killed. This led to a large number of younger activists of the CPIM leaving the party under and forming their own party 2 years later in 1969. It was reflective of what was happening across the world, where after the Second World War, large number of young radicals in every country in the world expected radical changes. In the Indian context, it was land reforms, removing of zamindari, which did happen, but um, not to the extent to which young activists would have liked it to happen. There were still landless laborers who lived on substances,
Yeah.
on wages which were barely enough to live.
Yeah.
Land reforms finally did happen in Bengal after 1975. Agricultural production went up sixfold after land reforms happened. Um, the story in the book, which by 1971, the central government imposed president's rule in Bengal after the government fell. It was an alliance of the CPIM and a breakaway party from the called Bangla Congress Party. Operation Steeplechase was launched during June to August 1971 for 45 days, where the army took part.
Does he talk
And
about
the Naxalite movement was. Did you say something?
Yeah, did he talk about this Operation Steeplechase? I think he did mention it. No?
Yeah. So from Naxal Badi in 1967 to the forming of the CPIML, which was an Naxalite party in 69, and the 2 years after that, the influence and clout of the Naxalites in Bengal had greatly increased. Murders of landlords and police personnel took place in crowded junctions and cities. There was also either public sympathy or support. I mean, if not support, at least sympathy.
Right.
And just before the 1971 Bangladesh War, which by March, as we know now, as declassified documents and public statements, we know now, by March 71, India had decided that it would have to aid the liberation of East Pakistan, which happened at the end of the year. But before that, they had to deal with armed rebellion in the state bordering Bangladesh, which was West Bengal. So, and a joint military police operation called the Operation Steeplechase was launched in 1971. Planning for it happened 6 months before hand. Um, there is almost no documentation on this because of the fact that it was then decided that there would be no written records of the operation. While the army cordoned off areas that were considered Naxalite strongholds, the army didn't actually fire क्या बोलते हैं, बोलते हैं, single shot. It was police and central paramilitary forces that participated in this anti-Naxalite operation. Till today, there isn't a confirmed statistic, at least to my knowledge, of how many people
Right.
were actually shot dead. But at the end of our Operation Steeplechase, the Naxalite movement in Bengal was practically over. Sporadic acts of violence continued till since 19 for about 5 years after. Emergency 1975 to 77 was when even the remaining resistance of the Naxalites was completely wiped out.
So that's when he was in jail.
Manoranjan's book is, yeah.
He was in jail then, no? 1975 to 19.
Yeah. By late 74, early 75, he was in jail. And the characters he describes in jail are actually, one could view them as soldiers of an army that was on the route. The Naxalites had been routed. These were the remnants. What is interesting is that even though they are on the route, they are in jail, and most of their comrades are either captured or killed.
Yeah.
His book suggests that they were highly motivated even at that time. Even at that time, they had the respect of fellow prisoners. They were looked upon in fear by jail personnel.
Yeah.
It also is testament to how deep an impact the movement had on the psyche of Bengal, which has led to several films,
Yeah.
books, and so on being written.
Yeah, I mean, it totally captures
Also
the
explains
of the young people. No, sorry to interrupt you. I'm just getting carried away. It totally like captured the. Wait 1 second. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
yeah.
Yeah. So what I was
Yes.
saying was that it totally captured the imagination of the young people, no, in Bengal. Like the book just really like kind of.
Yes.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you said it totally captured the
Yeah.
imagination of especially young people in Bengal, which is true. I mean, people who were young then in when he was in jail 1975, if you were say 15 years old in 1975, you are 63 right now.
Yeah.
The age 50 to 70 is the prime age in Indian politics. These people who were children then are political leaders right now. It also explains why a Manoranjan Byapari is a member of a ruling party despite producing literature that is seen as sympathetic to the Naxalites, despite being in jail that time. I wonder if those who are in jail today for, say, the Delhi riots, I wonder how they would be looked upon 50 years later. Today, they may be politically untouchable.
Mhm.
I'm sure everyone who was in jail in 75, I mean, I don't think those who were in jail during the peak of the Naxalite movement were as socially untouchable as anti NRC or CA activists are right now. Those who went to jail in the last 2 years during the anti CA protests, they are more socially untouchable than Naxalite suspects back then.
Okay.
But it would be, I hope I live long enough to see how they are treated in literature, in cinema 50 years later. I mean, in or even 30 years later. I mean, in 2050, I wonder if how would literature treat anti-CA protests? Um, and yeah, it's the like I was saying. I mean, the Naxalite movement itself may have fizzled out. It continues till now, till today. You do have periodic acts of violence, large number of
Yeah.
Naxalites, police personnel,
Yeah.
other bystanders, villagers being killed. However, the movement today is a shadow of what it was back then. Back then, there were actual large parts of Bengal and Bihar, even in the 90s, which were controlled by Naxalites.
They had a parallel government, yeah.
I mean the Naxalite strongholds where they ran a parallel administration in Jharkhand were liberated
Yeah.
less than क्या बोलते हैं 10 years back.
Yeah.
So it's I think a lot of us who live in larger cities, even Calcutta. I mean, though it's the story is set in Calcutta. For us, a movement like this, an armed rebellion like this, we only get a sense of it from fiction. So sometimes it's much easier. It's a much more people find it. Participants of rebellions find it more comfortable to tell their stories
Yeah.
through fiction rather than non-fiction, and
Pheroze,
I think it serves.
hello?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt?
What we
Yeah, can
yes
I interrupt you for a
yes.
second? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can hear you. Yes, I can. I can't see you though, but yeah.
Okay. So basically, before we move on to the next thing that you were going to talk about, I just wanted to touch upon some of the themes that kind of come up in the book so that, you know, if people are interested, they have some idea of it. So, couple of things were just that one of the things that struck me was I mean, it's not a theme, but I liked this about this book, which is that uh, Byapari merges folklore with reality. So it's basically it's magic realism, like and I wanted to just read a little bit of this just to give people an example of what I'm talking about. Just give me 1 second. If you can't hear me, Feroz, just message me, okay? Okay, so I'm gonna read a passage. Just 1 second. Okay, so this passage is about this entity called Pandaswala, right? The Pandaswala is an entity that is seen roaming around and haunting this prison, and prisoners are absolutely terrified of the Pandaswala, and so this is basically folklore of the prison, and I just want to read a section of it. Okay. These things happened, apparently. Kanai Mandol, a guard on morning duty who lived near Bhangor police station, said, "Nothing surprising about it. A man who dies at an inauspicious moment has a lot of powers after death. Just the other day, someone I knew had died. How do I tell you this? Just as we were putting a torch to the pyre, the dead body threw aside all the wood piled on him and sat up. Do you know how this was possible? Because of the timing of his death. Why should Lakshman Singh not be able to get out of his bed then and walk around? Lakshman Singh is the name of the Bandaswala. It was Saturday, and on top of that, a new moon night. Everyone knows that someone who dies at such an hour becomes a ghoul. So, and then I wanted to also read Yeah. So what happens is the Pandaswala, because people are so scared of this entity, they start to leave food for him just to appease him because he has to be fed, and if he's not fed, then he gets upset. So prisoners are starving, but there's always a full plate left for the Pandaswala. Okay, and this is actually my favorite story, my favorite because this is a collection of stories. It's like qissas about the prison, right? So this is my favorite qissa is about the the Bandaswala. So just one second, I'll just read it. It was a full moon night after an unbearably hot day. Rehman Molla had been in charge at the chowka. The chowka is the place where the food is made. Uh, he had been in charge at the chowka, being grilled by the heat from the enormous ovens. The door of his ward faced southward. A breeze filtered in through the bars of the thick iron gate. Not only was Rehman Molla exhausted, but he had also smoked some ganja. Which is why he was fast asleep. Suddenly, he felt someone tugging at his hair. Suddenly, Suddenly, he felt someone tugging at his hair. Which bastard was it? As he shot up, his blood froze. Lakshman Singh was standing outside, covered in milk white bandages. His eyes were blazing like balls of fire. One look, and Rahman clamped his eyes shut before fainting in terror. In the brief moment he had been poised on the edge between consciousness and oblivion, he had heard Bandiswala roar, "Where's my food?" Rahman remembered nothing after this. In utter consternation, they saw a figure in white walking around the ward. Moments later, Rampada, the guard on duty, was heard saying in fear, "Who's there?" There was no reply. There was no reply, only the sound of something or someone plunging into the pond. Rampada came running up to the gate of the ward. Discovering the lock still in place, he said, stupefied, "The gate is locked." Who was it then? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Not that well? Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, I can.
Okay. Discovering the lock still in place, he said, stupefied, "The gate is locked." Who was it then? Everyone was awake by now. They were both frightened and astounded. All the prisoners were locked up at this hour. Only the guards were outside, stationed at their respective posts. No one but Rampada was supposed to be here. Since he was asking who it was, it obviously wasn't him. Who then? By then Rampada had come to. What he said after composing himself gave everyone a shock. But why had Bandiswala visited Rehman? Don't you get it? Rampada said. Such idiots. Who is Rehman? He is in charge of the chowka, which means he is in charge of the food, isn't he? So he came to Rehman to demand food. Who else would he ask? As far as he's concerned, he's still in jail, so he has his meals allotted to him. Yes or no? Is he wrong to ask for his due? It's not right to upset spirits. We'd better leave his food for him below the banyan tree from now on. And that's how they started leaving food for the Bandiswala, under the banyan tree. So, so one of the themes, I guess themes is the wrong word actually. It's more like these are the short stories that, kind of describe life and what it's like in jail. And I think a lot of it he probably picked up in the 2 years that he was in jail, because that's when he actually started collecting stories. When he met Naxals and things like that. So he had like a treasure trove of stories, and then I think maybe that's how it ended up in this book. So any thoughts, Firoz? Whatever you heard.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, I'm sure it's there in every human society. This idea of the supernatural or things you can't explain. I also think ghosts and spirits are used by people to understand or express things they can't can't do in the conventional understanding of things. For example, like you pointed out, there are prisoners starving, but the Pandaswala is fed. I saw it as a larger metaphor of how the state works. Fear works, right? Fear, uh, the fact that something scares the jailers, scares them enough that they would allot food to a spirit. And now these are jailers who in the book they are described as people who are stealing rice, stealing milk, and so on.
Yeah.
But there is something that can scare them.
Yeah.
To make them do their job, at least for this one spirit. Uh, this is true for a lot of things. I mean, especially in jails and police stations where there are stories about custodial torture, deaths, and so on. Every other old police station, a police station that has existed for say half a century or more, or jails have these stories of these spirits and ghosts. Our house in Calcutta is near the Balpur police station. Uh, the area is spelled as Ekbalpur, interestingly named after Alama Iqbal, who stayed in the neighborhood.
It's E.
Pakistan's national poet. Um,
But Ekbabul.
yeah, though his name is spelled differently,
Yeah.
the neighborhood is spelled as Ekbal. So yeah, so the police station of this neighborhood, which is about 3 or 4 kilometers from this jail,
Yeah.
Also has legends of Naxalite suspects being beaten up in custody. People living around this police station in the 60s and 70s have heard young men screaming in pain and so on.
Wait, is this?
There are also legends of spirits
Okay.
lurking around the police station. I feel that these are society's ways of expressing to people in power things that they can't do in a regular normal fashion in a in a society where there's no armed rebellion or armed conflict. In a perfectly ideal democratic society, complaints of not getting your due or say being tortured can be raised in a democratic way. There's a system to file a complaint and so on. When these established norms are set aside, when common people don't have the space, like those prisoners in jail in this book don't have the space, or they are not comfortable with complaining to the jailer that we are not getting enough food. Legends, myths, ghosts, spirits, ghouls are ways of society to tell their story. A story will always be told. In a free society, journalism is supposed to tell the story. In societies that aren't free, in military dictatorships like Myanmar or you know, absolute monarchies or one party states, stories are told in different ways, perhaps not through journalism, perhaps through folklore. Folklore is something he uses well here, because when I read the story of the Bandishwala, this it immediately rang true for me, because these are exactly the stories of the neighborhood police station. That there are ghosts, and we must do things to appease the ghost. So yeah, it's a wonderful way to tell a story. Also, that if you're a prisoner in that jail, you may be starving, you may be being beaten up for no fault of yours.
Yeah.
But the fact that something scares the jailer,
Yeah.
the jailers, it would give you some joy.
Yeah, for sure. But Yeah, I just, yeah, I think it's kind of ironic that, I don't know, I think it's kind of ironic that they were doing so much injustice to prisoners, you know, but there was no remorse. There was no sense of remorse. There was no sense of guilt. They were just part of the system, and doing whatever was necessary or whatever. But when it comes to the Pandaswala and them kind of transgressing with that, they are afraid of that. There's hell to pay. So I think it's also interesting what they consider to be like a wrongful act, like torturing people and killing them is not in their kind of sense of things. It's not wrong. It's a part of their job. But like not feeding a ghost, so that was like, it was almost absurd to kind of see the mentality there, like that human
Hmm.
beings alive and well are not valued, but a dead human being haunting them is to be feared, you know so
True. I would also I would yes, you are right, but I would take a slightly divergent view. I think that the almost all the characters in the book,
yeah,
uh, on whom the author writes in some detail,
yeah,
have some moral code. Even the worst character, even the worst characters, the jailer who is from Bihar and has
yeah,
who at the same time has Hindutva sentiments, yet respects Congress, Nehru, Gandhi, and so on.
yeah,
Uh, Everyone has their own moral code. I struggle a lot with it these days, where we live in a time where there is pressure on writers to take an absolute line. You have to, in a work of fiction, I say this very often, where say a movie, the movie Z, right? The movie Z,
yeah,
French film, French film on the military dictatorship in Greece. Z has inspired many movies across the world. If you even see in Z, even the 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 most villainous characters who commit murders, they are also shown as people with some soft corner. They have some moral code, which is a realistic view of how society works. I think over the last 10 years, cancel culture and all that, there is a pressure to conform, in the sense a lot of people are uncomfortable with showing characters who are not black or white. But the truth is that all characters have shades of gray. I mean,
yeah,
every hero has a flaw, every villain has a soft corner for something. There is a moral code. Now, the 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 jail administration characters whom the writer writes about in depth, the policeman who ends up stopping them is from escaping, is actually the guy who writes the slogans on the walls. His moral compass, right in the end, tells him that so far and no more. He is willing to be punished and lose his job and probably go to jail, despite being the man who actually, his actions have resulted in this jailbreak not being successful.
yeah,
There is also a common a prisoner, this Bhagavan, who is sent as a spy. Bhagavan is the ideal literary character. He has done plenty of wrong in life,
yeah,
and police have naturally used him to spy on the Naxalites.
yeah,
They make no attempt to turn him, but Bhagavan from their turns just seeing them.
yeah,
I think that was the writer's way of showing. I mean, he uh, with the jailer and the others, the main jail head, the superintendent, and so on. He doesn't go too much into their character. Even the next slide characters, he doesn't peer into their souls like the way he does to the of for the jail guard who stops them in the end, or Bhagavan. But it's in times of moral absolutes, it's always good to be reminded that throughout history,
Yeah.
the good characters and the bad characters, the antagonists and the protagonists in every story have a moral code. It's a code that sometimes we may not understand. Like you said, these guys are okay with murdering people, but they feel an obligation or almost a spiritual thing to. I'm just gonna turn on the light. It's getting
Yeah.
sunset.
Yeah.
The sun is setting on that side. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I like the sort of realism of it.
Yeah.
It speaks to me, and I think it's why I find it so remarkable. It's not the first work of literature that talks about even villainous characters having a, for someone who has been in jail and suffered at the hands of these jail officials. It takes a remarkable amount of humanism to still look at them as human beings, which he does.
Yeah.
I try to put myself in his shoes. If I was tortured in jail for 2 years for no fault of mine, would I be,
As
human enough to look at upon my persecutors as flawed human beings who had good sides and bad? I find that remarkable about him as a writer, where he is able to do that.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Yeah. I think where I'm coming from is that, yeah, they do have this moral code, but there's also a lot of brutality, and they don't shy away from it. And neither does Byapari. Neither does he. Like, I mean, when they're trying to escape the kind of viciousness with which they are kind of stopped is the viciousness. I'm saying the viciousness with which the prisoners are stopped is, it's quite like, horrifying. So while I agree that, yeah, he does give shades of gray to his characters, and there's no black and white, and they are complex. I mean, I do think that his characters are complex. Particularly the police officer who wants to quit being a police officer, jailer, and Bhagavan. Like, I do think that or it is Bhagavan, I think, that I'm talking about. Like, he does have like shades of gray and all that, but at the same time, ironically, he's the one who puts a stop to the revolt. Ironically.
Yeah.
But other than him, the jailers are very brutal and don't shy away at all from, so I think in that sense, he does maintain complexity of character. But I also think that he does show the reality of Indian jails, like the way that prisoners are treated. But still, yeah, I am astounded at the kind of complete, I'm astounded at like the complete kind of disconnect that the jailers have between their treatment of prisoners versus their treatment of the Pandaswala, and how they feel that it's completely unrelated when it's not. There's a kind of blind side that they have. That is what I was referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and what else? Yeah. Do you have you were talking about Halloum? Do you have anything marked where he talks about Halloum? Because I wanted to just read that.
Halloum, no, I sadly don't have it marked here.
Okay.
Yeah, even when we just began the thing, I just then started flipping because
Yeah.
I realized then that I should have kept it marked, and
No.
because Halum is my favorite character in the book. And if I already have a cat, but if I get one more, I am naming him Halum if it's a male cat.
Okay.
But yeah, Halum, I am unable to. It's scary. I mean, Halum makes it to the to the to the picture. You know
The cover.
our cover picture of the book, and uh, I mean, two things come to mind on Indian. I mean, one thing comes to mind on Indian jails, and Hobart Gandhi was a person who spent several years in jail on charges of being a Naxalite, which haven't been proven yet. He maintains that he was not a member of the banned CPI Maoist, and um, yeah, his biography,
Yeah.
because he has spent so much time in different jails,
Yeah.
is almost offers a comparative study from Naxalite suspects' eyes on of different jails, and he is all praised for Hyderabad jail, where Garlapalli jail near Hyderabad, where he talks about how the jail system is geared towards reforming a prisoner and so on. They have opportunities to read, write, and so on. There are jails that function well. I'm told Agra jail has this famous jailer whose name I forget. So a large number of prisoners languish in jail because while they have got bail from court, they are too poor to pay the bail. Agra's the jailer for the longest time gets people on festivals, on Diwali, Republic Day, national days of observance to contribute money to bail people out. I know Tihar jail, for example, though we've all the recent news from Tihar is very scary of people getting killed in jail and so on. There are I mean skills people learn in jail. They make biscuits and snacks in jail. So both things are happening in Indian jails parallel. I mean, there is atrocities which we read in this book, which is comes to the fore in every place where there's an armed rebellion, be it Manipur, be it other states, and state places like Hyderabad, which were once Naxalite strongholds, which now the movement has been suppressed for about almost 2 decades, where jails take the form that they are supposed to be in a democratic society where there's an attempt to reform people, give them skills, and so on. This book is a good reminder and of of how bad jails can be. So it's not the individual jailer who decides. It's a system fashioned in a way. It's a system fashioned in a way that e- enables jail officials to violate your rights.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
Now,
a good point.
why it's important for people to know of this? There was another book few years back called the Bad Boys of Bokaro Jail. Bad Boys of Bokaro Jail is a thin book written by this guy who used to work in a company that used to hold coaching classes.
Okay.
And he lands up in Bokaro Jail, and
Bokaro Jail.
So, book. I mean, he is writing it as an untrained writer, right? He's writing the book raw. This is not a seasoned writer writing a book.
Yeah.
This is a regular corporate chap writing a book.
Okay.
And the way he describes the jail, how you survive in the jail, how the most effective survival tools in jail are tal, so you don't get bitten by mosquitoes or mosquito repellent and stuff like that. So why it's important for people to know how bad jails can be and how the system of jails enables the violation of your rights is because anyone can end up in jail.
Yeah.
The Bad Boys of Bokaro Jail is about a corporate honcho who ends up in jail for no fault of his. You would want a jail in a democratic society which is humane.
Yeah.
You would want home, you would want families that are humane, you would want workplaces that are humane. We should expect the same from jails. Uh, all places of human activity should be humane, should uphold the rule of law, should not be run through systems that enable the violation of rights. And this this book, I mean this book also stands testimony to the fact that even in the face of brutality, horrific brutality, are you there?
Yeah. Hi, Firoz. I lost the connection.
Hi.
Yeah. So you were saying that it's
Yeah. So just put my phone off.
fine.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, even when this this book is a testament to the fact that even when one's rights are violated, when placed in a situation or a system which is not humane, not just, one still maintains their humanity. The writer doesn't lose his humanity, his ability to understand human beings in a humane
Yeah.
way.
He's
And yeah, it's a thin book, but it's quite remarkable in that.
yeah, I think he's really empathetic, and I think for him, I think one of the reasons why his characters are not good and evil, including his representation of the jailer, is that I think he also prison was in a way a new start for him, right? Because he got inspired to start reading there. I mean, in a way that gave him that opportunity to pursue his passion. That was where he got the seed to start writing and become a writer. So I think maybe that way, I mean, I'm not sure, but maybe that's one reason why he has that more complex representation or understanding of people in the prison system. So I think Firoz, I found the place with Haloom, chapter 5. So I wanted to end this recording by just reading a little bit about it. I don't know so I don't know where you want me to read from, but I will just kind of read a section of it from the beginning. Okay? So, yeah. Thank you so much. It's been an amazing podcast. Okay, let me just read it, okay? And if you lose my voice, just let's just leave because yeah. Okay. So as Feroz said, Halum is his favorite character, and Halum is a cat that lives in the jail. So he chooses to be there. Somewhat like Bhagavan, actually. Somewhat like. Wait, I'm getting confused. Who's Bhagavan? Bhagavan's the one who wanted to leave? Wait, Bhagavan is the one who wanted to leave, or is Bhagavan the one who wanted to stay?
Bhagavan is the spy. Is the spy the cops plant in the cell of the next?
And who is the guy who wanted to leave? There was Bhagavan is the prisoner. Bhagavan is the prisoner, right? Bhagavan is the prisoner. There is a
yes.
There is a police officer who doesn't like the brutality. That
yeah, he is the guy who
Bhojan. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So this cat.
Bhojan, this was.
Okay. So this cat is like Bhagavan because even Bhagavan keeps on coming back to the prison because that's where he he can get food.
Yeah.
Which also shows the kind of the way that things were, or maybe even are. Anyway, so This is about Harun. Here in Bengal, the cat is referred to as the tiger's aunt. Whether it applies to other cats or not, the name is eminently applicable to Halum the cat. He is as fat as he is tall. He has been living in the jail for about 3 years. The jail is infested with rats, small, medium, large. Thanks to rats of all sizes, the sacks of rice, wheat, and dal stored in the godowns are never safe. The rats gnaw away at the jute with their tiny teeth. Who knows what pleasure this game affords them? Meanwhile, their droppings, grime, and dust mix freely with the grains and pulses to make everything inedible. It was to safeguard against this invasion of rodents that Shurjo Babu, the godown clerk, had picked Halum up from the streets and taken him in. The glassy-eyed cotton ball white Halum had found himself an enormous hunting ground as a result, where the prey numbered in thousands and there was just one hunter. He was conscious of his responsibilities initially, killing 4 or 5 rats every day. But this unlimited supply of meat was his downfall. He became corpulent, and as his age rose, so did his laziness. He can no longer chase his prey with the alacrity of the past, cannot pounce on them with sharp claws, and so he has lost the wish to do it too. He knows he is the only emperor of his giant kingdom. Hundreds of humans live here. He can secure his own sustenance with very little effort at the Chauka and Amdani, where food for the humans is available. Then why bother with hunting? With no wife or children or household to maintain, why work so hard when the only person he has to feed is himself? So that's the introduction to the character. But anyway, so this was an amazing discussion. Like, I know that we had some technical difficulties, which is part and parcel, I think, of doing a podcast like this, but at least for me. But I am learning, so please be patient with me, my audience. But I want to thank my guest, Pheroze Vincent, for being here, for taking the time. This this book discussion would not have been the same had it just been me giving my opinion, because what you did is you gave it context, you gave it a personal story, you actually lived close to the jail where this takes place, this book takes place. You gave such an interesting historical context and such an interesting analysis that really actually truly helped me appreciate this book much more than I initially did. So, Pheroze, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate
Thanks a lot for having me here. I'm happy to. I actually just wanted to. I mean, every time I meet a few friends, I ask. I read this book about 6 months back, and I just felt I need to talk about it to people. So I would ask Bengali friends, have you read the book in Bangla? Does it read differently? And I'm just happy we could have this talk, because I really wanted to talk about this book to you. I mean, I've from things we have spoken about in the past. I knew this is, I mean, when you would say you would take a trip to Delhi and stuff. This was one of the things on my mind that I tell you, hey, this wonderful book which you should probably like to see. So I'm very happy we could have this chat, and it was wonderful talking.
Okay, last question. Last question. I'm curious, does it read differently in Bangla? Like, what did your Bengali friends say?
A friend who has read the Bangla version says that the translation is actually very good.
Okay.
It's translated quite well, and yeah, it's there is a person who has, say, lived in Bengal or Eastern India may be able to connect more to the book than someone who hasn't, or say someone who's not from South Asia would find it a bit more difficult to comprehend.
Yeah.
The whole system and the sort of
nuances,
Bengali expressions or nuances and so on. as I would have say reading Chinua Achebe's novels. I mean, I would sometimes feel the feel the sort of disconnect where s- certain themes would be understood better by people who live in that place that he describes. But the wonderful thing of good literature is the ability to transport you to that writer's world. So uh, Achebe or Leo Tolstoy can transport you to a world, or can transport me to worlds which I haven't been to, which I have no clue of, and I would feel it's right there. And this book does do that. It takes you to a place where you would hopefully not have to to be in. So yes, thanks a lot for having
Thank
me
you,
here.
Feroze. Thank you. Have a
Wonderful seeing you.
yeah,
After
wonderful seeing you as well. And have a good weekend. Okay, take care of yourself. And if you come to Goa, you know who to call.
I will.
Okay, bye, those.
Thank you.
You
Thank
take
you.
care. Bye.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye. You
Take
too.
care.
Bye.